Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today we're doing something a little different. We aren't just analyzing a sector.
Oh,
We are going on an expedition. I want you to put down your phone, stop multitasking for a second, and just come with me. We are taking a trip.
a trip. I'm assuming we aren't going for a holiday, given this mountain of financial reports and technical brochures you've dumped on the desk.
No, no holiday. But we are going to the tropics. I want you to close your eyes. It is today, January 31st, 2026. The world has fully, and I mean fully, moved on from the pandemic years of the early 20s.
People are flying again with a vengeance.
Exactly. The airports are packed. But I don't want you to look at the shiny duty-free shops or the business class lounges.
All
I
right.
want to take you out past the gates, through the security checkpoints that passengers never ever see, out onto the tarmac.
The operational side, the side you know well.
The visceral side.
Mhm.
Picture it. It's 34 degrees Celsius. It's humid. That thick, sticky tropical heat that hits you like a wet blanket the moment you step outside.
Mhm.
The air doesn't smell like perfume. It smells like Jet A1 fuel, burnt rubber, and hydraulic fluid. It is loud, it is chaotic, and it is absolutely vital.
You are setting quite a scene. You're describing the maintenance, repair, and overhaul sector MRO.
I am. But for this deep dive, based on this second reports, market data, and industry notes we have from late 2025 and early 2026, I want to use a different framework. I don't see an industry.
What do you see?
I see a jungle.
A jungle. That's a bit dramatic for heavy engineering, isn't it?
Is it? Think about it. Southeast Asia in 2026 is a vast, high-stakes ecosystem. The aircraft, they're the migratory birds.
Okay.
They never stop moving. They're constantly hunting for routes, hunting for yield, hunting for passengers. And those corrugated metal hangars in Singapore,
The MRO facilities.
those are the strategic nests. They are the watering holes where these massive metal beasts come to survive, to heal, and to get back in the air before they collapse.
I like the metaphor. It actually aligns perfectly with the economic data we have in front of us. If you look at the brochures from the MRO Asia Pacific 25th anniversary or these annual reports from giants like SIA Engineering Company and Thai Airways, it really is a story of survival of the fittest.
It is.
It's Darwinian economics played out with titanium and aluminum.
Exactly. And the stakes. If a nest collapses or if the watering hole dries up, the birds stop flying. If Singapore sneezes, the entire Asian aviation network catches a cold.
Or worse.
Or worse, it crashes. And right now, sitting here in 2026, I get the feeling the heart of this jungle is beating a little too fast.
It sounds like you're speaking from your days in logistics. You've got that 1,000-yard stare again.
I do. You know my background. I've spent years shouting at suppliers, tracking lost shipments across time zones, and staring at aircraft on ground AD reports until I needed glasses. When I look at this industry, I don't just see stock prices. I see the sheer exhausting effort to keep entropy at bay. Things break. Physics is relentless. And in 2026, fixing those things is harder than it has ever been.
See, that's where we differ. I respect the operational grind, I really do, but when I look at these documents, I see a finely tuned machine. I see Singapore positioning itself as the apex predator in a market projected to be worth over $15.2 billion by 2030.
A machine that's redlining.
I see margins, I see strategic dominance, I see a system that capitalizes on necessity.
You see dollars, I see ulcers. But that tension is exactly why we are here. We are going to unpack the reality of the Singapore MRO sector. We're going to look at the supply chain crisis, which I call the Hunger Games, and the talent drought that might just ground us all. So grab your pith helmet. We're going in.
Lead the way.
All right, let's start at the center of the map, the watering hole. In 2026, Singapore isn't just a participant in the MRO market. It is the undisputed king of the jungle.
The data backs that up unequivocally. We are looking at a market share of roughly, 25% of the entire regional MRO market?
25%.
That is a staggering statistic.
It's massive. For a tiny island nation, a little red dot, to capture a quarter of the maintenance spend for the fastest growing aviation region in the world, that is not an accident. That is by design.
It's geography, certainly, sitting at the crossroads of major trade routes, but it's also policy. You've been to the Seletar Aerospace Park, right?
Many times. It's my old stomping ground. I've lost more hair in Seletar than anywhere else on Earth.
Well, in 2026, Seletar isn't just an industrial estate, it's a hive. We are talking about over 130 aerospace companies clustered in one specific area. It's dense.
Let's break that down for the listener who hasn't been there. Why does clustering matter? Why can't you just have a hangar out in the middle of nowhere? Why do they need to be on top of each other?
In economics, we call this agglomeration benefits. Imagine you're fixing a car. If the tire shop is next door to the engine shop, which is next door to the electronics specialist, you can fix the car in a day.
Right.
If those shops are in different cities, it takes weeks. You're waiting on shipping, communication breaks down. In aviation, time is the most expensive currency there is. In Celatar, you can't throw a wrench without hitting a turbine bleed specialist or an avionics technician.
That density creates speed. And speed is what the airlines are buying. If I have a bird on the ground, I don't care about your hourly rate nearly as much as I care about when that plane is flying again. Every hour it sits, it's a loss.
Precisely. And ruling over this hive are the nest builders, the big giants. You have ST Engineering and SIA Engineering Company, or SIAEC.
Okay, let's talk about them. ST Engineering is the heavyweight, right? The alpha.
They are the global leader in airframes. If your bird has a cracked rib, massive structural fatigue, or needs a complete strip down to the skeleton, that's where it goes.
The trauma surgeons of the jungle.
That's a good way to put it. But I want to zoom in on SIAEC. We have their annual report for the 2024-25 fiscal year right here. They have pulled off quite a recovery.
I remember a few years ago, right after the pandemic, things looked bleak for them. The hangars were empty. The staff were furloughed. It was a ghost town.
They were. But look at the 2026 context. They posted a net profit of 139.6 million Singapore dollars. Revenue up nearly 14%.
140 million. Okay, how?
They've been running this internal campaign called One SIEE.
The corporate branding exercise.
Well, it sounds like it, but the idea was essentially trying to stop their different departments from working in silos and to unify operations.
Corporate restructuring, usually that's a buzzword for firing people or rearranging the deck chairs.
In this case, it was about efficiency. And, looking at the numbers, it worked. They're printing money. And here is the key insight from the report, for me at least.
What's that?
They aren't just fixing Singapore Airlines planes. That's a common misconception. They are fixing foreign aircraft. Singapore has become a net exporter of technical services. Airlines from Europe, the US, and the rest of Asia are flying their empty planes ferry flights to Singapore just to get them fixed.
Okay, hold on. Net exporter of services sounds very clean. It sounds like a nice spreadsheet entry. It sounds like something you'd put in an investor presentation.
It is.
But let me tell you what that looks like on the ground.
What you see?
I see a traffic jam. A massive, expensive traffic jam. You mentioned foreign aircraft. It's not just the big legacy carriers like Lufthansa or Qantas anymore.
No.
The jungle is teeming with smaller, faster creatures. The low-cost carriers.
The LCCs. AirAsia, Lion Air, Cebu Pacific, Vietjet. The disruptive species.
They are breeding like rabbits. And here's the problem with LCCs. They operate on razor-thin margins. Their entire business model only works if the plane is in the air 18 hours a day. They cannot afford downtime. They don't have spare planes sitting around.
High utilization rates are their lifeblood. If the wheels aren't turning, they aren't earning. It's that simple.
Exactly. So you have this explosion of LCCs, and they all need slots in Singapore because Singapore is the alpha predator of quality. And more importantly, speed. The hangars are full. It looks like economic efficiency to you, but inside the maintenance control center, it's a knife fight for slot availability.
That creates pricing power for Singapore, though.
It does.
If demand outstrips supply, the price of the slot goes up. That explains SIEEC's revenue jump. It's classic supply and demand.
Sure, it's good for the balance sheet. I get that.
Yeah.
But it's a nightmare for the logistics director trying to explain to his CEO why their money-making Airbus A320 is sitting on the tarmac in Celatar, burning in the sun, waiting 3 days just for a bay to open up. That director is sweating bullets.
So the efficiency of the hive creates its own bottleneck.
A very, very expensive bottleneck. Yeah. And that brings us to the part of this deep dive that really keeps me up at night, the part that causes the ulcers.
The supply chain.
The supply chain, or as I like to call it, the Hunger Games.
Is it really that dramatic in 2026? I thought supply chains had normalized after the mid-20s.
Normalized? No. They've calcified. They've frozen in place.
Yeah.
Let's look at the source we have, the market overview for 2026. Do you know what the lead time is for new parts from the OEMs, the original equipment manufacturers like Boeing, Airbus, or the component makers?
I recall seeing something about delays. Maybe 6 months? That seemed high.
Try 12. 12 months.
Wait, what? A year?
A year.
For a part?
A full year.
Okay.
If you need a specific high-pressure turbine blade or a specialized avionics computer and you want it brand new, shiny, out of the box from the factory, you order it in January 2026 and maybe you get it in January 2027. Maybe.
That is catastrophic. How does an airline function with that kind of lag? It's impossible.
They bleed. Let's do the deep dive math for the listener. We have a term in the industry, AOG, aircraft on ground. It is the three scariest letters in aviation.
The dreaded acronym.
When a plane is AOG, it isn't generating revenue. But you still pay the lease, the insurance, the parking fees, the crew salaries. An AOG event, according to our data here, costs an airline between $10,000 and $150,000.
Per day.
Per day.
Per day. So a 10-day delay is potentially $1 million loss. That wipes out the profit margin for the entire route for the month. Or more.
Exactly. Now imagine a 365-day delay waiting for that new part. That airplane isn't an asset anymore. It's a liability. It's a black hole you pour cash into. It's a dead bird.
This explains a very specific trend I'm seeing in the financial data. The explosion of the USM market.
USM. Used serviceable material.
In plain English, secondhand parts.
Scavenging. Let's call it what it is. It's scavenging the dead.
In the jungle, as you said, nothing goes to waste. When an old bird dies, the others fight over the bones.
That is a grim image, but
yeah,
it's accurate.
It's big business. We saw a major move recently that highlights this. Itochu, the massive Japanese trading conglomerate.
The Sogo Shosha.
Right. These guys trade everything from instant noodles to oil to textiles. They recently acquired Killick Aerospace. Now, why would a general trading house buy a niche aircraft parts company?
Because they smell blood in the water.
Because they smell arbitrage. They know that new parts are unavailable, so the value of the scrap heap skyrockets. Certified used parts are usually, 20 to 40% cheaper than new ones, but in 2026, price isn't even the main driver anymore.
It's availability.
Exactly. You can have the used part now, today, or the new part next year. For an airline losing $150,000 a day, price is irrelevant. Speed is everything. They will pay a premium for a used part just to get the plane moving.
It's incredible when you think about it. You walk into these gleaming high-tech facilities in Singapore, state-of-the-art lighting, laser alignment tools, floors so clean you could eat off them. And inside, the engineers are fitting parts harvested from a retired plane that was sitting in a desert in Arizona 2 weeks ago.
It's efficiency born of necessity. But speaking of necessity, we have to talk about the engines. Specifically, the CFM LEE engines.
Oh, the EAP, the workhorse of the modern narrow-body fleet. If you fly on a Boeing 737 MAX or an Airbus A320neo, you're likely riding on LAP engines. They are incredible pieces of engineering, truly.
And according to this MRO market report, ST Engineering is performing over 400 LAP engine overhauls a year now. Singapore has become the Asian center for this specific engine.
400 a year. That's more than one a day, including weekends. And yet, I guarantee you, there's a line out the door.
Why?
Because the engines are running hotter and longer than ever before. The LCCs are pushing them to the limit. Plus, in the jungle, the air is dusty, it's humid, it's salty. These engines take an absolute beating. They wear out faster. So the demand for overhauls is it's insatiable.
This scarcity, this pressure, it drives behavior. It forces the ecosystem to adapt. And that brings us to the other animals in the jungle. Singapore isn't alone.
No, the neighbors are watching. And they're hungry. Let's fly north for a minute. Let's talk about the bird that almost went extinct.
Yes.
Thai Airways.
The resurrection.
We have their presentation from July 2025. They call it Fly for the New Pride. A few years ago, Thai Airways was in rehabilitation. They were essentially bankrupt.
They were heavily indebted. A classic case of a bloated legacy carrier. They had too many staff, too many planes, and no clear direction. But look at them now in 2026. Operating profit around 41 billion Thai baht.
41 billion.
That is a massive turnaround.
How did they do it? Did they find a pot of gold?
They did what any creature has to do to survive a harsh winter. They simplified their diet.
You mean the fleet? You're talking about the planes.
Exactly. Thai Airways used to fly everything. A380s, 747s, 777s, A330s, A350s.
Yeah.
It was a zookeeper's nightmare from a maintenance perspective. Every different plane type needs different spare parts, different mechanic certifications, different pilot training. It's a huge cost.
It's logistical suicide. You need 5 different types of screws just to keep the seats attached. It's madness.
So they cut it, they streamlined, they reduced the fleet to just 4 aircraft families.
4. That is a dream for the maintenance department. Fewer part numbers to track, simpler training.
And they cut personnel. It was ruthless, make no mistake. They sold off old planes and let go of staff. But this proves that in the jungle, the lean survivor wins. You can come back from the brink if you are willing to make the hard cuts.
So Thai Airways is the lean survivor. Okay. But what about the young upstarts, the ones who want to eat Singapore's lunch?
You're talking about Vietnam.
I am. Vietnam is fascinating. The passenger growth is over 8% year on year. That is explosive.
And their fleet is growing just as fast.
The numbers here say it's jumping from 254 aircraft to 400 by 2030. They have the birds. So many new birds.
I hear a but in your voice.
But they don't have the nests or the twigs to build them.
You mean the infrastructure?
And the supply chain. Look at the sources on the Vietnam market. They rely heavily on third-party companies like Delta Avia for parts support. They import almost everything. They have companies like Go Vietnam Airlines Engineering Company, but they're overwhelmed.
So they can't service their own fleet.
Not at that scale. They have the volume, but they lack the depth of the ecosystem that Singapore has spent decades building.
It's a classic emerging market problem. Capital investment in assets. The shiny new planes outpaces the investment in the less glamorous support infrastructure.
Right. It's like a teenager who buys a Ferrari but can't afford the oil change and doesn't know a mechanic. He just drives it until it smokes.
And then there's the noisy neighbor right next door to Singapore.
Malaysia.
Malaysia's making moves. Big moves.
They are. We saw Asia Digital Engineering, ADE, open that massive 14-line hangar in Kuala Lumpur. That is a direct challenge to Singapore's capacity. They're basically putting up a giant sign that says, bring your planes here, we're cheaper.
And notice what SIAEC did. They didn't ignore it. They didn't build a wall.
No.
They built a nest in Malaysia.
Base maintenance Malaysia in Subang. It's a classic move. SIAEC sees the writing on the wall. Singapore is expensive. Land is expensive. Labor is expensive. So they moved the lower, more labor-intensive work, the heavy metal bashing, the stripping of paint to Subang, to capture that cost advantage.
It's a hedging strategy. Smart. If you can't beat the lower cost structure, own it. Control it.
But here's the thing. As the logistics veteran, I'm tempted by Malaysia. I really am. The labor rates are lower. The bill at the end of the check is smaller.
That's always a but.
But in a thriller movie, speed is life. If I send my plane to Subang, will I get it back in 20 days? Or 25? Or 30? There's an uncertainty there. If I send it to Singapore, I know I pay a premium, but I get the Singapore standard. I get the turnaround time, the TIT.
That is the premium Singapore charges for. Certainty. In a chaotic world, certainty is the most expensive commodity.
Yeah. However, even the king of the jungle has a weakness, a vulnerability. And this one might be fatal.
You're going to talk about the people.
I'm talking about the Vanishing Act, the talent drought.
The data here it's alarming. The region needs 690,000 new technicians over the next 20 years.
690,000.
That's a small city of mechanics, and they don't exist.
They don't exist. And we're not making them fast enough.
And because they don't exist, the ones who do are becoming incredibly expensive. We're seeing wage spikes of 15% to 20% for qualified engineers in Singapore and Malaysia.
It's a wage war. I've seen it on the ground. You have a good sheet metal guy. He's been with you for 5 years. He knows the fleet inside and out. Suddenly, he puts in his notice. Why? Because the MRO across the street offered him a 20% bump and a signing bonus.
It's inflationary. And for the MROs, it crushes margins. But it also creates a dangerous dynamic.
It's poaching. It's cannibalism again. We aren't training enough new people. We're just stealing them from each other. It's a zero-sum game. And it's not just about money, It's about knowledge transfer.
What do you mean by that?
Think about the experience gap. The sources mention the old birds retiring, the senior engineers, the ones who have been fixing 747 since the 90s, the guys who can diagnose an engine problem just by listening to it hum.
That intuitive knowledge.
Yes, they're leaving. They are aging out. They're taking their pension and going fishing.
And who replaces them?
Kids fresh out of Polytechnic. Smart kids, good kids, but they're kids.
Look, I'm all for new blood. We need digital natives, people comfortable with the new diagnostic tools.
You do. But you can digitize manuals all you want. You can have iPads with augmented reality overlays. You cannot digitize 20 years of intuition. You can't code grit. When it's 3 a.m. raining and a bolt is stripped, you need the guy who knows the trick to get it out, not the guy who knows how to update the firmware.
That is a valid fear. And there is another danger lurking in the vines, though. We talked about parts scarcity, but we need to talk about where those parts come from. The geopolitical vines.
Oh, the fragile threads that hold the world together or tear it apart.
The industry is heavily dependent on foreign materials. specialty steels, titanium, semiconductors for the avionics.
Most of which come from places that aren't exactly best friends right now. The supply chain is long and fraught.
Correct. If a blockade happens, if a trade war turns hot, the jungle starves.
Immediately. The supply chain is global, but the friction points are local. If you can't get high-grade aluminum into Celatar, ST Engineering stops. SIAEC stops. The birds stop flying. It's that simple.
It's a sobering thought. We are flying on a system that relies on everyone getting along, which, looking at the news any given day, feels optimistic.
Wildly optimistic. So how does the jungle evolve? If the environment is getting harsher, fewer parts, fewer people, more geopolitical risk, how do these companies survive?
They have to change. They have to evolve. And we're seeing two main paths in the reports. One is digital and one is, well, let's call it green.
Let's start with the digital. Is this just buzzwords? AI-powered synergy. Because I've sat through enough presentations to be allergic to that phrase.
No, this is real utility. This is predictive maintenance.
The Minority Report for airplanes. I know you're going to break, so I'm arresting you now.
Essentially, yes. We see partnerships like Korean Air and Boeing using AI and big data. Instead of waiting for a part to fail, the plane itself tells you, hey, my number 2 hydraulic pump is vibrating at a frequency that suggests failure in the next 50 flight hours.
Okay, that changes the game for the flight constraints we talked about, doesn't it?
Completely. If you know exactly what needs to be fixed before the plane even lands, you can have the part ready. Maybe even that used part you secured from Itochu and the mechanic and the tools waiting. You cut the turnaround time in half.
You turn a multi-day, unplanned event into a scheduled, hours-long task.
Exactly. You don't need more hangars if you spend less time in them.
So the data saves the physical space. That I can get behind, if it works.
It has to work. It's the only way to scale. You can't just keep building hangars. You run out of land, especially in Singapore. You have to make the existing hangar smarter.
Okay, then there's the other evolution. Green MRO. We see SIEC putting solar panels on their hangars. We see eco-friendly waste management.
Sustainability is a massive trend. The sources highlight it as a key competitive advantage. It's a big part of their public messaging.
Can I be the cynic for a second?
Please.
It's your brand.
Do you really think a logistics manager who is bleeding 150 grand a day on an AOG cares if the hangar has solar panels?
In the moment, of course not. They just want the plane fixed. But the regulators do, the investors do.
Exactly. It's a business calculation. They aren't doing it out of the kindness of their hearts. They are doing it because of the green incentives and regulations mentioned in the reports. If they don't go green, they get taxed or they get locked out of certain contracts from European airlines who have their own ESG mandates.
That's survival.
It's camouflage. They are painting the nest green so the predators, the regulators, the investors don't attack them. I think that's a fair assessment, though I would argue that energy efficiency also lowers operating costs in the long run. Solar power is cheaper than grid power in Singapore eventually, so again, it aligns with profit.
Fair enough. Survival is survival, whether it's financial or environmental. If painting the roof green saves a buck, they'll paint it green.
So as we look at this landscape in January 2026, let's try to pull the threads together for the listener.
Well, we've established a hierarchy. Singapore is the king, but it's a stressed king. It's crowded, it's expensive, and it's running out of room and people.
Vietnam and Malaysia are the challengers. Thailand is the lean survivor, back from the dead. Vietnam is the hungry adolescent, growing fast but uncoordinated.
And the battlefield is the parts market. It's a scavenger hunt for used gear because the new stuff is a myth, a ghost story you tell new mechanics.
And underlying it all is that terrifying shortage of human talent.
That's the real thriller hook for me. We can talk about AI, we can talk about billions of dollars in market value, we can talk about solar panels. But at the end of the day, when that A350 comes into the hangar, someone has to hold the wrench. Someone has to sign the release form.
And that person isn't there.
Then the system stops. And if Singapore stops, Asian aviation collapses. It's that simple. We're looking at a fragile ecosystem held together by duct tape, used parts, and tired engineers who are being poached left and right.
It creates a paradox. We have better technology than ever, more demand for flying than ever, but the foundation feels shakier than it did 10 years ago.
Which raises the final provocative question I want to leave with our listeners today. We are building hundreds of new planes. The order books are full. We are opening new routes. But looking at the demographics, looking at this talent gap, are we flying toward a future where we simply have more planes than people who know how to fix them?
And if we reach that tipping point, who decides which birds fly and which ones stay grounded forever?
That is a question I hope I don't have to answer. from a stranded airport terminal. I've got a shipment to track.
And I've got stock prices to check.
Until next time, keep your wings level.